rolling up, Uber black Cadillac, high heel boots, and a sexy body full of tats. Baby's bad.
Hi, wave to the whenever we do that, we wave at the camera. So that's just for, added production value.
Of course.
By that I mean you can see how fat I am. That's the added part. There you go. Push your shoulders forward, shoulders up.
Strength.
Doesn't matter. You got a bright light, covering
just
most of you. Bing! If I did it right, it would look like you have a halo. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, that was more like you have a laser coming out of your forehead. So either way,
we tried. Okay.
We did try.
If the halo turns into a laser, then so be it.
It just turns into a destructo disc.
Yeah,
Just take off the halo and throw it, and it just cuts people.
Just cuts people.
I'm
Krillin.
Yeah, or it's a galaxy ending thing. You just and it just wipes out all consciousness on the other side of it.
Yeah,
It's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that one.
Maybe not. But
Maybe not. All right. So either way, guys, welcome back to the Now You Made It Awkward podcast, episode 97. We're getting so much closer to episode 100. It's kind of weird because for a while there, we didn't know if we'd get this far. So I am Shoky. You can follow me at all the Shoky related links down below. Because if anybody wants to check out my other channels, you can do so. Most people don't, but it's fine. Most people come here from my other channels.
Oh,
and actually, I have a guest with me today in the house. So I have an Andre.
I'm an Andre. One of them, I guess.
Yes, I have this Andre.
Yep.
This is your camera if you want to look directly at the people's. There you go.
How's it going?
So I'm just collecting pastors is what I'm trying to do. So
okay, just kidding.
So I've had James on twice.
Okay.
And since I know you for the same reason I know James, welcome.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Glad to be here.
Yes. So Andre is. So what is your technical title?
I am the associate pastor.
Okay.
That is the title.
Yes. Okay.
And yeah.
For Real Life Conroe.
Yeah, Real Life Ministries Conroe, correct.
Yes. Nice. So yeah, because you and I have managed to have more nerd conversations lately after men's group.
Yeah.
So guys, whenever I say I got to get done with the podcast to go to men's group, it's to go hang out with this guy. So that's just what it turns into.
I'm just special sometimes, I guess.
Yes, but you do like nerd things. We've had anime discussions. A few weeks ago, I talked about watching 86 on your recommendation.
Yeah.
Now I have to call you out because you're here.
Oh.
Did you get a chance to yet?
Yeah, the first. I just back to the first episode, so
okay.
nothing.
So started on Gundam IBO.
Yeah, so got to get back to IBO, but it's a good story from what I remember.
Yeah,
but I'll get back to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of memes around IBO because it's Mexican guitar intensifies. And it's just that's when all the main things start happening. You just hear the,
Mm-hmm.
But it's the same thing from Bleach. Whenever especially when they were in Hueco Mundo, like every time the guitar started going, you're like, oh, we know what's on.
We know what's happening.
Somebody's about to go bunkai for no reason,
and we enjoy it every time.
Yes. No, you know what's so funny about that? I was just trying to rewatch the Ichigo versus Ulquiorra fight on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I found like 17 different cuts of it because nobody will do a straight upload because copyright. But I couldn't find one that had the original roar whenever he was in Vasto Lorde form. And then I had to go to Crunchyroll.
Yeah.
No, technically I went to Hulu. But I had to go a proper streaming site to find the actual original audio for that because they change it in the later HD releases.
Really? I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, it sounds like somebody gargling. It sounds like the actor gargling and pitched up instead of like the roar.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do you screw this up so bad? I was like, is it
interesting?
Yeah. So I think I might not have mentioned it to you. I mentioned it to someone else I was talking to. It might have been Will. Have you ever heard of the anime called Beck?
I've heard of it.
Okay, Mongolian Chop Squad. There's a / Mongolian Chop Squad, and so it's more of a slice of life anime, and it's about music. So it's about this young kid who learns to play guitar because he's got nothing going on in his life. He's not cool, all this other stuff, and it ends up getting him into a rock band.
Okay,
but he originally learned to play Beatles songs because the guy who taught him guitar was a massive Beatles fan. So he learned to play a whole bunch of different Beatles songs.
Huh.
Copyright, once the actual show ends up here in America, they have to eliminate all of the Beatles songs because copyright laws here versus copyright laws in Japan. Now, mind you, they're performing it. We're not listening to the straight audio.
Yeah, they're listening to them perform it.
Yeah. So the thing is, there's a moment near the end of the series that is really important, and he has to keep playing this Beatles song over and over for like 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And it's part of the show, part of the plot that's happening.
Okay.
So when I bought the DVD set, it didn't have those songs. And like, it's a super impactful, emotional moment. And they changed the song. And I'm like, this is weird and I hate it. Even the Japanese version has a different song. That's why it's even weirder.
Oh.
So I was like, they had to re-record these segments of the show to avoid the stupid copyrights. And I no longer have the downloaded versions that have the original. So I'm going to have to find someone, or maybe buy the Japanese copy of the DVDs or something, or Blu-ray.
It's out there somewhere.
It's got to be. But I haven't looked for it anywhere. So what's so funny about the show, there's 2 anime type things that happen.
Okay.
That's it. Like, everything else is just normal. Like, this could just be life.
Yeah, it's
Literal,
exactly.
like, absolutely normal, just people doing things, right? Except for the weird Frankenstein dogs that are never explained. You just see a dog. The dog is named Beck, which is where the name of the band comes from. They just said the dog's name is Beck. And it's a Frankenstein dog. It's literally pieced together of like 5 different dogs. And then they run into another one in America. And I was like, hold on. Like, there's this weird underlying thing that the people connected somehow outside of the main group have these Frankenstein dogs. And it's the only actual anime thing about the show. And it's never explained. Not in any way, shape, or form. It's just like...
Maybe just to remind you this is an anime.
Yeah, by the way, this is anime. But it is a really good show, in my opinion. Yeah, by the way, if you need a cough or anything, just do the international sign of distress. Yeah, then I'll that's the joke here. So either way, guys, make sure you like and subscribe to this channel here on YouTube, or you can hit us up on Rumble, where we're trying to get more people over there, because Rumble is more about free speech, realistically, even if you don't like it. YouTube, on the other hand, you say one wrong thing, and they're just like, we're going to nuke your whole channel. Not to mention copyright issues. But also, if you're following on any platforms, hit the follow button. If there's a rating thingy, go ahead and hit it. The 5 pumpkins or whatever the rating system is for that particular thing. I have no idea.
5 pumpkins?
I don't know. Stars, pumpkins, horseshoes, holy hand grenades. I don't know what they vote on. It's just, there are things. So, either way.
You didn't do this distress text.
Yeah, so that's me coughing. They care if they don't care if I cough. They care if you cough.
Fair enough.
They don't care at all.
Okay. Got
So
you guys.
that's
No
fine.
worries.
So the other thing is, of course, if you want to write into the show with any questions, comments, rants, whatever, you can do so at NowYouMadeItAwkwardMail@gmail.com. There'll be a noise right now. There's a noise in the edit. You don't hear the noise.
No,
It's fine.
I made up a noise in my head.
It's a ping, and then rings for a second. And then, of course, otherwise, you can follow the Facebook page, the Now You Made It Awkward Facebook. It'll flash here on the thingy. It's also linked down below. And you can actually send in voicemails via the weird chat feature, which I didn't realize you could do that on an actual page.
Really?
Yeah. It's like, I see all these other YouTubes and stuff like that to set up a legit cell phone for voicemails. And I'm like, Facebook allows voice messages. It's like, you can literally just have a voicemail messenger set up on Facebook with your professional page. So this week, like every other week, Shaun has messaged us to ask us a question or give us an embarrassing story or something. I have no idea what it is. I had to tell him that we were going to do this early so he would do it.
Yeah.
But I will say, guys, before we listen to whatever the heck this is, episode 100 is coming up. I do need some either or, yes or no, would you rather type questions for the episode 100 questionnaire sheet. I have about 68, I think, at this point.
Something like that. Close to 70.
I came up with a couple other ones yesterday at church. I came up with a couple because I was fumbling through other stuff while Pastor Joe was talking.
Yeah.
And by the way, I was looking up some other stuff that we can use for service that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
I was Amazoning some stuff, including a headphone adapter, because it turns out mine was broken in half. I didn't even realize it.
Oh, fun.
So I got it. So I got it with one of these sets of things.
Okay.
And I plugged it into the thing, and I'm like, why is this not working? And I pull it out, and it's just It's like just broken. I'm like, oh,
that's
nice.
nice.
Unfortunate.
Like we love that.
I bet if I dug through this drawer, I'd probably find another one. Either way, let's see what Shaun sent in and cringe otherwise. And I hope it's not exceedingly loud. We shall see.
Awkward, the better, right?
No.
Oh, okay.
We try to avoid being awkward, but we do it when it's funny.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Question for the pod. Hey, you guys, since Father's Day was just yesterday?
Yesterday, yep.
Do you guys have any proud moments of your father? It could be anything. Growing up, your dad did something spectacular, amazing, or just in general, just made you proud that was your pops. If you have a couple stories, might talk about that. I have one that was also terrifying, but yet at the same time, it was like, yeah, go dad. So we went to Atlanta, Georgia, once upon a time for vacation to go catch a Braves game. And we were in the parking lot at the stadium. My brother, I, my mom, and the van, and dad, and this dude, some rando in his fucking car, cuts us off. And of course, you know, they start honking and flipping and mouthing at each other. Well, then they both stop. Dad gets out of the van, and the other dude gets out of his car. And Mom tells us to be quiet and sit down. And we're like watching, like, what's gonna happen? And Dad gets out there and beats this motherfucker to the ground. Just whooped the brakes off this random dude in the middle of nowhere. We're not even home, you know. We're in Atlanta, Georgia. To a kid, that's like another country.
That is, yeah.
And then just gets back in the van and just goes on like nothing happened. Mom didn't say shit. My brother and I were just like big-eyed and mouth wide open, like, what just happened? Dad's gonna kill everybody. And it was like a normal fucking day after that. You know, this was fucking, I'm gonna say like 91, maybe 92, something like that. But anyways, it was a different world, but I was also terrified to see Pops actually hurt somebody besides me.
Yeah.
But also proud of, yeah, my dad kicked your dad's ass. Anyway.
Kick someone's dad's ass.
Yeah.
Well, that cut off randomly. Okay. Well, I like that was a question and a story. He combined the two things.
Well done,
he doesn't always apply input. Do you got something off the top of your head?
Yeah, off the top of my head, I do. But first, I really wanted to know if there was like other kids in their car. Like, did they do a stare down? Like,
in the other car.
Yeah, in the other car.
He didn't say. It just said some random dude. So I mean, I would assume the guy was by himself.
Yeah, man, but it'd been really funny if kids were there. That happened, and the kids are just staring at each other.
Staring at each other through the window pane.
Yeah.
Out the side of the minivan, stare down.
Yeah.
All right. So if you got something, go ahead.
Yeah, I do. Nothing anywhere close to that. But so I played.
You mean your dad, the devout pastor, didn't beat the shit out of somebody in the streets?
Yeah, no, he didn't do that.
Might have been cool if he did.
Although I did hear stories of when he was younger. Like he used to have a fro, and so when he would he played basketball and did a whole bunch of sports and things, and if someone stole the pick out of his hair, like he was gonna fight. But
as well, you should.
Yeah, I never saw that part of him, so you know that's a long time ago. But
one should ask.
I have. The stories have always been cryptic.
No,
so.
I mean before taking one's pick.
Oh yes, well, yeah.
You ask. You don't just yoink.
You don't, but some folks wanted to do it just to see what would happen, and they would learn one way or another.
F around and find out.
Exactly. But so my dad, we lived in Virginia, and he worked in D.C. With just different government entities and things. And after getting out of the military, and I played baseball, and he was working. I remember it was like he was working 100-hour weeks. Like it was just he could barely make it to church. Like it was that sort of like just week after week after week, and there's some cybersecurity stuff happening. So he's up there working, and I just remembered I hadn't seen him in a while, and not because he just wasn't around. He's at work, and so usually he would always try to make games, and he just wasn't able to make any of my baseball games for pretty much a month or so.
Yeah.
And then I remember knowing he's in the middle of this really tough week. I'm out in center field, and I just happen to look, and I see somebody coming from the parking lot, and he's like walking, and you know, as you do in baseball games, sometimes you kind of look at things and not quite paying attention to the game. But we were warming up. And I saw him walking.
Staring at nothing while you're in the outfield.
Oh no!
Like heads up, it's coming your way, huh?
Oh, goodness, yeah, I'd have gotten my butt chewed out if I did that. But yeah, I just kind of looked up, and just for what I knew he was going through in the week, to see him kind of walking down towards the field, from the parking lot was kind of just a moment for me that, he, in the middle of all of the, I don't know, it was probably worst stretch of work he probably had in a long time.
Yeah.
He decided, I'm going to make it to my son's baseball. It was my last baseball game. It ended up being my actual last baseball game.
Wow.
But he made it to the game, and I'm in center field crying. Like,
What grade is this?
This is I was a sophomore in high school. Yeah, okay. This is before.
So it's not like Little League.
No. This
high
was
school.
Yeah, this was after done AAU things and all the other travel baseball. This was high school baseball, and I just kind of looked and was like, "You made it!" Like I wasn't expecting to see you until all the chaos at work is done, and you found your way down here.
Totally, dad moved it.
Yeah. It was really cool.
So was it like the dog doesn't know that his owner, who's been away at war, is coming home, and they have that nice little reunion? But that's you in the center field.
Oh yeah, that's me in center field. But of course, I have to I couldn't react crazily. So I started crying. Like, tears are the first thing that came, and then it was. I don't even remember the outcome of the game. I couldn't tell you anything else about that game.
Yeah. Well, the important thing happened. Dad showed up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, and not to downplay anything my dad has ever done, but I'm trying to think of big proud dad moments. That is weird because in almost the exact opposite form, my dad was always there.
Okay.
Because my dad retired when I was 5, so he was around.
Yeah.
So proud of my dad. I know that whenever he was with the American Legion, he got some important stuff done for local vets and things like that. And he fought for a lot of people's benefits and stuff like that they weren't getting, and organized quite a lot. My dad was really good at taking charge and organizing.
Okay. Yeah.
If you ever noticed in these last few months, where I somehow just end up in charge of things despite not meaning to ever remotely be in charge of anything.
Right.
That's where it comes from. It's just oh well, we just kind of move from just showing up one day to 6 months later running important stuff because we just got tired of incompetence around us. It's we're just so tired of everybody else failing. We're just going to take over to get it done.
Yeah. It's all right, I'm going to step in here. It's I got it.
I didn't want to step in, but now I ran it.
Yeah.
Until I can teach someone else to do it as good as me, and then I can go sleep.
Yeah. You got it. I'm out.
The whole goal is to hand the work off to someone else you feel is competent, and then get there.
Yeah.
So I think that would be one of those things, because he organized building ramps and porches for disabled vets who needed it. So that was a big thing. He would organize between Lowe's or Home Depot to get it taken care of, and he was doing the treasury of his particular whichever post he was at, because he moved around a little bit.
Yeah.
Because of a lot of internal politics, you might not be amazed to see how bad that can get. Yeah. It's how much money can possibly be stolen from veterans directly when you have bad leadership. It does happen. Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially when that person is also a sheriff. Never mind. Not talking about not that either way. There. Not going there.
Dad. What? Yeah. What you proud of?
So actually, that would probably be the thing. Watching my dad fight against that corruption.
Yeah.
Because now that I mentioned it, he did. He tried to fight against a corrupt commander and tried to get voted in.
Okay.
Didn't succeed, because at that point the guy had rallied everybody against my dad. But watching my dad try to do the right thing for his own post and the guys there, and then in the end run, moving and taking a lot of people with him to a different post and growing there outside of that corruption. There were other issues there eventually, because once again, you get the wrong person in charge. And what did I say? It's we don't actually want the responsibility. We just take it because no one else is. Yeah. And then we hope to advocate that eventually, or abdicate is the word I'm looking for. Abdicate. So we can give it to someone else.
Right.
It's we didn't want it. We just did it to get things right, and now you can take over, and then that's when things went wrong again. Trusting the wrong people. So it's funny now that I've spelled it out that way. I see the same thing happen in places and organizations I've been a part of. It's Well, that explains so much more. This is just what we do as a family, apparently.
Well, anywhere there's people, there's going to be problems just because there's
What?
relational
This
things.
is the first I'm hearing of this.
It's kind of just kind of the nature of the beast anywhere. But
Yeah.
you know,
Well, that I've talked to you about it. I've talked about it here. Is that was the same problem I had with church for the longest time. Was the internal corruption of certain churches that apparently are still doing the same old song and dance. Yeah. But people still go for it, so it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, my prayer is that at some point, Lord shines a light on that, and then the right things happen. But like I said, where there's people, there's problems waiting to happen.
Yeah.
But it depends on who's willing to hold someone else accountable, who's willing to step in when those things, and there's people like you who just kind of like, hey, I'm stepping up to take care of this until we can hand it off. And sometimes there's that.
And sometimes you just leave because there's no other option.
Yeah, and sometimes that's the right thing to do. It's to get on out. So
whether that's a job, a relation, any kind of relationship, honestly. Yeah. Because I forgot who. Oh, okay. So Shaun was telling me about some current issues he's having, and he didn't necessarily want advice, so to speak. He just said he didn't know exactly what he should do, and I'm like, well, you got to do what's best for you. If you have an opportunity that can give you the things you've been striving for, and it's not going to hurt you to do it, but it might bruise someone else's ego or maybe slightly injure the relationship you had, is like, yeah, but y'all have a toxic relationship. It's like, if every day you come home and you're miserable and you see the wrong thing being done constantly, you can only do that for so long before it breaks you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, do the thing that's right for you to do, because the other person in that situation clearly doesn't care what's right for you. They care what you can do for them.
Yeah.
And that's what I just told him. I was like, I mean, honestly, at this point, if you have the opportunity and if it's a safe opportunity, take the risk.
Yeah, and almost at that point, there's a saying a friend of mine has: when you get in some of those bad situations, you've already kind of started to feed that monkey. Once you feed the monkey, you have to keep feeding the monkey. Yeah, and it makes it a lot harder. That's why folks get stuck in some of these really bad situations, because it gets harder and harder to pull out, because then now you've got people depending on you, and now there's an attachment you have because you've now invested subconsciously all this time and effort, and it's like, well,
and then you get the sunk cost fallacy. Well, I've already spent this much time, effort, and money. I might as well stick around and see if it'll fix itself. And be like, no. Yeah,
no, that's not. Yeah. Most of the time, that's not even the case. Most of the time, it's time to move on and get out.
Yeah,
but
save yourself.
Yeah.
What do they always say? It's like, secure your own mask before securing someone else's.
Yeah, it's hard to help someone else. If your boat's sinking, it's not going to do me any good to help someone else fix their boat if I'm going to be underwater in 2 minutes.
You're patching up someone else's boat while yours is sinking just as fast.
Yeah.
You're like, well, cool, thank God your boat's good. And then they're like, thank you. And then you're still sinking. Help? No, I'm good, bye.
Yep, they're off.
Yeah. Like, no, just take care of your boat first. Because if you don't have a boat to stand on, well, then your boat sunk.
Very much so.
We're just all into metaphors today.
Hey, man.
Metaphors are
swimming deep.
Yep. So I do have a question for you from last week, because I want to get another person's opinion on this. So Shaun asked us what we thought deja vu was.
Okay.
So Jeff said that he never experiences deja vu, so he didn't know what that felt like.
Okay.
And so I explained it as a full body, full sensory reliving somehow of a situation.
Yeah.
But what do you? But I can't. I'll see if you have ever had any thoughts on what deja vu could actually be.
Yeah. So for me, like, deja vu is when I enter into a new situation that reminds me, like, as soon as I step in, I go, I see something I've already experienced before. Yeah. And it's not necessarily always like maybe full body, but there's like the thought process of, oh my goodness, you remind me of this person. You talk just like this person. I know what you're about to say in like 2 seconds. And it's like, how'd you know? It's like,
I've lived this somehow before.
Yeah. Like somehow, some way I've with other people, this almost exact scenario happened, and here we are again. So, it's weird. It kind of takes me back for a second, but then.
Well, the reason I say it's full sensory is because it feels completely different to remembering something that's similar. Because you can recall things, but there's a completely different feeling when you're recalling something. And I even took, because Shaun and I talked about this last week after I asked him what his thoughts were once the episode dropped and he heard our explanation. Because Jeff thought it was learned behaviors and like basically a response to something that's a similar stimulus that you've already had.
Okay.
And I said, I think it's more than that.
Yeah.
Because I think recollection, especially if you get lost in a memory, you kind of go somewhere else. But with deja vu, you feel like you're living something again. Not like you remember, oh, I remember the last time I came through this gate. It's like, no, I've seen this exact situation happen already, somehow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Do you think there's an explanation behind it, or?
Yeah, some of it.
Okay.
So some of it, I think personally, in the moments that I'm thinking of right now, is God reminding me of something I didn't do right the first time. And to say, hey, he's bringing it back around. So, hey, like,
Here's another chance.
Here's another chance. Do you trust me with this? What are you going to do in this situation? Like,
Okay.
we've worked on this for months.
Okay.
Here you go. Other times it is, just another. I think of some of the friendships that I've built in different spaces in my life, and then there's people that I would go, okay, you remind me so much of this person, and the more I get to spend time with them, the closer I get to it. An exactly similar situation that I had in middle school, that I had with a friend in college, and now I'm going, what is happening? Because it's the exact same thing.
Yeah, but not the same person.
But not the same person.
Okay, so that's a key difference there, because normally I don't have deja vu. I don't have that feeling like I've done this with someone else. I get a feeling like this exact thing has happened, because Jessica's had it around me as well. I was like, thinking, have we had this conversation? And, it's like, it's not like we've talked about this before. It's we've had this conversation in this car at this time on Sunday driving past HEB. Like,
I get what you're saying.
See what I'm saying? It's like, and the way I broke it down is that it's not that a couple things remind you of a situation. It's everything,
like all of it,
every minute detail. And that's the difference of the feeling of deja vu. Because once again, recollecting something or just getting lost in a memory, you can go somewhere else and you're just sort of watching a thing happen. Whereas inside deja vu, you feel everything that you've somehow felt before.
Would you, on that note, would you consider having a dream about work and going to work, and the thing that happened in your dream happens at work?
I feel like, well, I have you've probably never heard my multiversal story, or you might have. I don't remember. My universe hopping dreams, where I've woken up in other me's bodies and experienced their life for a short amount of time, and then come back home eventually. But I think that I've talked about the fact that dreams can instill false memories. Like we talked about the movie Inception.
Yeah,
I incepted myself in a dream once because I woke up wondering where my motorcycle was. Yeah, and I didn't own a motorcycle ever.
No, I've had like nightmares.
But I had emotional attachment to a motorcycle, and when I woke up, I was mad that my motorcycle was missing. Yeah. So that's something different, I think. But the idea that you can have a dream about work or some situation and then you walk into that same situation, I think that there's got to be something like that in deja vu. Okay. But my explanation for it, which was real big tinfoil hat type explanation, if you subscribe to the multiversal theory, every little thing, every little decision you've ever made results in a new timeline. Okay. And they run parallel to our own. What I said deja vu was where, even though we've started from different places, we come together at the same point. Okay. So multiple realities bumping because we've come to the exact same point of reality. Okay. Even though there were other differences, somehow, some way, we hit the same thing. Now, Shaun told me, this is part of our conversation, so this is extended from last week. He told me that he has deja vu where he can predict like the next 5 seconds of a thing happening. So he's got deja vu of something that's about to happen. Like he remembers something clearly that hasn't happened yet. And then he experiences that thing. So what I told him is like, oh, well, then that means that the reality you bumped into is 5 seconds ahead of yours. So gravitational differences, Earth is in a slightly different position to what it was. That reality is moving ever so slightly faster. So you guys hit the same exact point. He just technically got there 5 seconds earlier, and you're in his temporal wake. So you can only experience, you hit deja vu 5 seconds after he does. Yeah. But he doesn't experience it because he didn't cross into you. You crossed into his thing 5 seconds behind him. It's a weird metaphysical thing, but like if you think of yourself moving through space-time like moving through a liquid, you're leaving a movement of wake behind you. So if another reality also moving through space-time is just 5 seconds off of you, that wake will intersect.
Yeah.
This moment happened here, and then you caught up to it.
Yeah, you're kind of. Have you seen ReZero?
I know of it, but
So you're taking ReZero and mixing it with the Flash, and then like
yes.
some of those things.
So if you get away from, and so what? Because he was all like, "Well, is there any way I can tell him to give me the lottery numbers?" And I'm like, "No, because you're always going to be behind him." It's like, well, if he's always ahead of me, then is he ever going to have deja vu? And I'm like, only with other realities that either are ahead or equal to. So that's the problem with gravity. Gravity does mess with a lot of space-time situations, even across realities. Because if gravity is a constant, even across realities, then it, whatever. Yeah. There's a lot of deep metaphysical stuff there. But like, it's kind of like the same thing with like ghosts or memories in a place. Mm-hmm. Like if a place can have memory of its own because of experiences that have happened in there, and then you walk in and you feel like, oh, this place feels funky, like it's not necessarily haunted, but there's an energy. It's something has happened in a place. It's in a way deja vu, but not your deja vu. You're walking into something else's existential thing. In theory, it's all theory realistically, but like I think it's something more than just recalling a situation because, like you said, even I'm getting a second chance to do a thing.
Yeah. So
like I have technically done this thing before, but maybe I made the wrong decision. But instead of going back to that moment in literal time travel, the moment has presented itself.
In a sense, yeah.
In a way, yeah. So hey, do this again. Try again this time. Yeah. It's the way I look at it, like kind of what Shaun, the way I put it with Shaun. Yeah. Imagine you're on a racing simulator and you have a ghost car.
Yeah.
So it's your previous run, and then you can always see it. Yep. But you're not. If you make the exact same moves, it will be just directly ahead of you, but doing exactly what you're doing.
Right.
But sometimes you can catch it.
Yeah.
And then intersect with it, and then even if you're good, you can get ahead of it. So in a weird way, there's a you and another you that are doing the same thing, but at a different time. So in a weird way, put it that way. I don't know. Weird metaphysical stuff.
Growing up, I'd always have dreams of like, man, or the idea that there's another me somewhere in another world that I can like link up with in my dreams, and we go do crazy stuff, and then I go home.
I think that the linking up with dreams is totally a thing since I've sort of experienced that because, the weird part was jumping into other me's bodies.
Yeah.
So the weird part was, and this is one reason why I mentioned the like gravitational differences and weird stuff that happens between worlds, between multiverses, because I was sleeping in our reality. So middle of the night.
Right.
I woke up and it was like mid-morning in the other reality. And I was outside in broad daylight. So I was like, okay, that was the first key that something's completely different. Yeah. Not to mention I was in a place I totally don't recognize. I was at work, full uniform, everything. But I woke up next to a roadside and like had no idea where I was. Didn't even recognize the place. One thing I haven't done is bother to see if that place does exist somewhere.
Okay.
So because it was at an airport, somewhere in the U.S. Specifically. So if I could go look up to see if my company has an airport terminal at an airport in the U.S. that looks like that, then I'll know.
Yeah, there's something.
That I'll know something specifically happened there. But, the idea that another time in that same series of events, I woke up and it was early morning, but raining, where it wasn't raining in my reality. Yeah. And it was a different apartment. So there's multiple things going on there. One, Earth is in a different position than it is in ours. Yeah. Or we're on a different coast, which is something I also didn't consider. Was like, okay, if it's nighttime here and it's daytime in the other reality, then maybe it's East Coast or somewhere else like that. And I just didn't stay in Texas. So, there's so many variables. And I thought about this. I brought up the very simple thing last week was I chose to wear a black hat, but I had the gray hat in my hand So if that one simple decision, I went gray hat instead of black hat.
Mm-hmm.
But then our conversation went exactly the same in every way, shape, and form, except for the hat color.
Yeah.
And then after that, both me's came to the same conclusion. In theory, I might have hit the same or another deja vu, even if small, just because it's like, but I figure if you're so close at all times that there's no real difference, then you wouldn't feel any different. But when there's a divergence and then it comes back, that's the way I looked at it. Because there's going to be some that are so close. Like, what if you wore a red shirt today instead of a blue one, but the rest of your day was identical? You wouldn't notice any real difference,
Yeah.
So, but if it was, you wore completely different shoes, you wore a completely different shirt, you drove a different car today, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then you experienced the same thing later on today for men's group.
Yeah. I mean,
it could happen.
Yeah, I know. A lot of it for me, it kind of chalks up to.
I think it's God. It's just God doing it. It always comes back to God, right?
Yeah, more or less. And because I'm someone that I'll say, like, I know God's spoken to me in dreams, like in different ways, showing me X, Y, or Z that I need to be doing something or not need to be doing something anymore. And in other times, there's been dreams I've had that I don't understand much. Like I wake up and the blurring of reality is there because everything. I went camping, road tripping across the country with some friends.
Okay.
And I mean, at this point, we're at Yosemite National Park at this point. And we're camping, we're in our tents and everything. And I remember I was asleep, and I remember having issues with my phone because I was going in and out of having signal and just trying to like text my family, let them know where I'm at and all those things. But I was asleep, but in my dream, I'm texting my dad, and all this stuff's happened, and my mom's sick, and we're kind of going back through. I kind of went back in time where she'd had a stroke, and so she's had some more complications. And in the dream, all this is happening, and then like I find out my dad leaves, like he leaves my mom, like it's this thing, and like for the duration of the entire dream, I could not like. Everything was real. Text messages from like all people I talked to generally were all upset about the same thing, trying to figure it out. I try to call my dad, but I don't have signal because I'm out literally like laying
middle of nowhere,
nowhere, laying in the tent. Like everyone in the tent is with it. Like all of that is very similar. I have all these things, and trying to understand. I'm recognizing all the emotions I'm going through. I wake up, and like my phone is still in the same hands. All the things are the exact same, and it's like I'm trying to go through my text messages, and everything's like not there, and I'm like, what just happened?
So the universe where your dad left your mom ceased to, or you ceased to be a part of that.
Yeah. But for me, it was it kind of looked forward. Like the way I interpreted it was there's and in all these things there's a decision.
So wait, did that? Obviously, that situation didn't happen, but like, are your parents still together?
Yeah, they're still together.
So there wasn't like a premonition.
No, there was no. They're still together. They're great. No, for me, what I took away, just in these further relationship conversations that I've had with other folks, but like there's choices I can make, just like wearing the blue shirt, the red shirt. There's some choices I make that won't have an effect on the rest of my day or the rest of my life. But there are some choices that I make that are going to have life-lasting, life-altering effects,
like having your foot hanging out of the golf cart.
Yeah, because I could have not had my foot hanging out of the golf cart, and I wouldn't still be dealing with physical therapists and all this stuff today.
Yeah.
4 months later, it's fine.
I still pick on you about it.
Yeah, I know, but it's just dumb.
Because it was so dumb.
You're not wrong.
It was so dumb.
You're not wrong.
Like, because I could see myself doing the exact same thing. That's why I feel how dumb it was.
It just was one of those things. I literally was getting in and out of the golf cart so often.
Yeah.
I was making very frequent stops. And so it was just like, all right, cool. Go up to the next thing, whatever. All right, now we're done. And like in my mind, I wasn't going to go down in between the narrow path and the sidewalk. I was going to go off the ledge, but there's a huge truck in the way.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, well, and would have been fine if the truck, I couldn't blame the truck and the other guy from the company who was in the truck, but.
So, what's funny is life-altering situation things that come down to like one dumb decision. Even if the smallest little decision, whether you went left or right, or you didn't hang back to have a conversation with somebody at the last stop, maybe that truck would have been out of your way, and your foot would be fine, but other things would be wrong. Who knows? But like, I know for a fact that there was a life-altering decision for me back in college, And there was an older guy who was going to college with us. He was probably in his 40s, maybe older.
Okay.
And he had gone back to school.
Yeah.
And we all knew the guy.
Uh-huh.
I mean, because he was always around. He always hung out around me and my friend group. But
Yeah.
he wasn't like a part of it, but we all knew the guy. He was in a lot of
Okay.
our classes. And he didn't have a ride home. He didn't have a car.
Mm.
And he lived on the same road as the college. He was only like a mile down the road.
Okay.
So it wasn't a big deal. And he was just looking for a ride. And I said, well, hey, I got to go get my paycheck. So I know this was a Monday because I always went on Monday to go get my paycheck.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I was about to leave to go to work to get my paycheck. I was done with classes for the day. I'd already played my however many games of pool to avoid real work.
Yeah.
And
I get it.
Yeah. And so I said, hey, I'll give you a ride. And so I take him home. It adds maybe 5 minutes to my journey,
Yeah.
if that. I mean, just because I waited on him for a minute and then had to take him home. And it wasn't like off the beaten path or anything. It was literally like just a tiny, tiny detour.
Yeah.
Had I not done that, and assuming the rest of my journey was without any hiccups, I would not have gotten in the car accident that totaled that vehicle.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Because I would have been 5 minutes ahead of it.
Oh wow. Okay.
I would have been 5 minutes ahead of the guy who caused the accident.
Yeah. Huh.
Other people probably would have been in that accident besides myself.
Yeah.
But, or maybe it might have just been him. For
Yeah.
all I know. Might have just been him in that accident, not nobody else. So had I just not decided to be a good person in that moment, but I mean, maybe that was just the calling that was one of the few things that was sort of a remnants of the old life, so to speak. Like that vehicle had a lot of attachment to it. It was my first vehicle.
Yeah.
Lots of other firsts happened in the back of that vehicle, stuff like that. If you catch my drift.
I'm with you.
So those particular chunks of my life were gone. So it was kind of the last bastion of the things of the previous chunk of life.
Yeah.
From a few months before. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. It sucked totaling a vehicle.
Yeah.
But I also wasn't hurt at all.
Oh yeah.
I was covered head to toe in broken glass.
Huh.
Because when the guy, he forgot where he was going because they were new to the area.
Okay.
He realized, oh, this is my turn, slammed on the brake and turned into his neighborhood. The guy in front of me, who was in a huge like F-250 like farm truck.
Okay.
You know, he had the giant like ranch hand bumper and all that.
Yeah.
I didn't want to run into that, and he slammed on his brakes. So he swerved, went to the left lane. I hit the brakes, swerved, and went to the shoulder.
Okay.
I didn't know how far ahead of me the problem was, and it was there.
Yeah. Oh.
So it was like minivan, me, and I was like, slam on the brakes, and I turned, and we came together like this.
Okay.
So my driver door slammed into the side of his minivan, and all that glass
Just
exploded into my vehicle on top of me.
how fun.
Yeah. And then our vehicles were so stuck together, they had to anchor his with the tow truck and pull mine out with the state trooper car.
Oh, wow.
They were so stuck together because I hit him at like 50 mile an hour.
Yeah, you're not-
Because there was no time to slow down. And I shoved his van up and over the curb that was right there.
Goodness.
Luckily, no real damage to anything else. He was hurt,
Okay.
Whiplash and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And he was older. He was like in his 50s or something like that.
Yeah.
He was a substitute teacher in Conroe.
Oh.
We found all these details out later when we found out there was a lawsuit that our insurance had handled.
Oh.
And they're like, well, he was at fault. So, no, we're not paying that. We found out literally 6 months after the fact that they had
Goodness.
settled it. We're like, wait, there was a lawsuit? We never even knew about
Didn't
it.
even know this.
Yeah.
Shout out to the insurance for doing
Yeah,
the thing, I guess.
shout out to State Farm for taking care of that.
Yes,
at
sir.
least I think it was State Farm. It might have been Farmers. I have no idea back then. I didn't pay for the insurance. I have no idea who it was.
Yep.
But being the only vehicle that I totaled ever, that was, well, not work vehicle. I did total a work vehicle, but that was not my fault. And actually, it was only totaled because the vehicle was just old enough they didn't make parts for it. So they couldn't do the repairs.
Yeah.
And so they had to total it because they couldn't repair it.
That's funny.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice though.
Yeah. But that's what happened. So it was right after Katrina, I think it was, or Ike. I think Ike is one that got us, right? Katrina didn't really get us here.
I don't know. I was in South Carolina.
You weren't here then.
I was East Coaster.
Yeah.
East Coast kid at that point.
Yeah, so there was a down tree next to the driveway I was driving up. And the truck I was in was really tall. I mean, you know what I do.
Yeah.
And normal vehicles would have been fine. But because this vehicle was almost 11 foot, the guy didn't clearance the fallen tree for anything over 10 feet. So there was a limb.
Lovely.
There was a limb sticking out.
Yeah.
It speared into the roof or the front of the vehicle right above the windshield, deflected down through the windshield, and then hit the interior wall behind me.
Yeah.
So the damage was broken windshield, and then bent. It hit just enough force because giant down tree. Even if I'm going 5 miles an hour, that's a lot of force on a limb that was no joke, a little bit bigger than a silver dollar.
Goodness. And
And I had no idea what I hit. I just knew I heard screeching metal and breaking glass.
Yeah.
And I look over and there's a tree with me in the cab. And I'm just like, well, that's not normal. And it was raining. So that made it even worse.
So yeah, you got one of the best trifectas that going on there.
Oh, no, it gets worse.
Oh no.
Because the head of our safety committee was visiting our building that morning.
Oh, look what you
And I'm in like the first 5 years. So he had just gone down yelling at us 5 year and under guys about safety stuff. And I had to call while they're in the middle of a meeting. This is first thing in my morning. And I had to call and interrupt their meeting to tell them I just had an accident.
Yeah.
That was not my fault.
Yeah.
Even the guy said, that's entirely on me. I didn't trim the limbs up high enough. I've been meaning to get rid of the tree. I just haven't done it yet.
Yep.
And I was doing everything right. I was making sure, because I was looking down to make sure I didn't go off the driveway and leave ruts in the grass, because it had been raining.
Yeah.
It was still raining.
Goodness.
And I knew there was a spot for me to pull up and back into. That's where I was going.
Yeah.
And then, and I've been there dozens of times, so I was very familiar with this house.
Yeah, it wasn't like a...
No, so it was a regular customer. So, like, it was not... It was just so dumb that they had to total that. But I'm sure the guy whose truck I was using, he was on vacation, so I got his truck.
Yeah, oh.
And when he got back, he was not happy about the fact that I had... But it's okay. He went to jail for child rape eventually.
Oh, well, then.
So,
goodness.
it's like,
Goodness.
He went to jail eventually for... doing bad things with his stepdaughter.
Yeah.
So there's that. I don't really care about his opinion anymore.
Yeah, when things get... That's a little awkward.
Yeah, it's very awkward. I mean, it's just like, oh, hey, didn't know that about you.
Goodness.
But now it makes a lot of sense.
Good.
Like, either way.
Oh,
So, couple things I've been meaning just to ask you specifically, since I've known you for nearly a year now.
Yeah.
It's almost been a year.
Almost been a year.
August.
We're...
I first started coming to men's group in August.
Yeah, so it'll be
a year and like a month and a half or so.
Yeah. Goodness.
So,
coming up fast.
I noticed something. You do some stuff with your hands that I have questions.
Okay.
So you do certain motions like all the time, and I've always been curious about why.
Yeah.
Like you do this a lot, like the flipping of the switch. You do that quite a lot. Is there a thing behind that, or is it?
Yeah. So I'll try to explain it in a way that makes sense to someone else, because it makes sense in my head. But there's sometimes when I can't think straight, I'll close my eyes and kind of picture everything, and then just kind of like move everything to where it needs to be, and then I can just like kind of then go focus on whatever
moving your digital board around.
Exactly, right? And it's a technique I got from a good friend of mine in college, and so I do that, and then sometimes like when I mentally need to make a shift. So
while you're demonstrating it, you did it.
Yeah. When I mentally need to make a shift, that's me physically reminding my brain, hey, we're doing something different now.
Yeah.
Or we're going to a different space for whatever reason. So yeah, that's a thing. I don't know. I've been doing that since I was I say college probably.
Yeah, because I could tell it was either a tick of some sort or it was a learned behavior. So that's why I was wondering why you did it. Because I know lots of people talk with their hands. I do, like all the time. But you make very specific motions. That's why I was like, I wonder where this came from. Because also I didn't know if it had anything to do with like a sign language thing.
Oh.
Or.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say either that or if it had anything to do with like the acting thing.
Yeah. Oh, it's some of my hand motions or things probably come from the acting thing.
Yeah.
My sister taught us some sign language. She is really fluent in sign language. That's the right way to say that. And so there's some things that are maybe from that, but I would say 99.9% of it's probably, if I learned it from somewhere, it was from the acting space.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember you mentioning that your son like had, I guess you gave him like baby signs.
Yeah.
So when you mentioned that, I was like, I wondered if that was like anything you had if you had taught him that, or if it was anything in that vein. That's why I was always curious about it.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, because it feels like a sign situation. Because I'm pretty sure there is some sign that's very similar to that.
Could be,
but who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, I figured it had to be something like that.
Yeah.
To that degree, and I was just curious, and it's just one of those things like, how do I just stop? Hold on, guys. Hold on about the Jesus talk. I gotta ask you an awkward question. Why are you doing that with your hands?
He's like, oh yeah, no, it's
because Jesus was on the cross. This is the motion he made right before they nailed him down.
What happened? Whatever it is.
Side note.
Go for it.
Okay, so I always want to ask pastors this question because I'm Christian, but like enough, but not. I'm not as deep as I should be. Where does the line get drawn on biblical representations, say like artwork and things like that? Is there a weird line that possibly could be blasphemous, even though it's not meant to be?
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. It's not a thing I thought about before.
I know and I have a very specific reason to ask, but I want to see if there was anything that you've even thought about. Ever.
So I think,
like we'll just say Jesus specifically. Like
yeah.
if there's a borderline representation, it would be like, okay, that's probably tacky or like obviously paintings are what they are. Big crucifixes in like say Catholic churches and stuff like that. Obviously, that's there for a specific reason. But I didn't know if there's a weird part of like idolatry that might be connected with any of these things.
I know, and some
now it might be something to dig into for fun. But
which I'm trying to think of things that just immediately pop in my head, so I don't like take time away from what we're doing right now. But there's we don't want to make any graven images, right? So there's a piece of that where we don't want to be going into if we're making something that in light of Jesus, right? That would misrepresent who he is and what he means. Yeah. And so in doing so, there's going to be a heart behind it, but also we have to look at in the same vein, is this going to cause someone else to stumble? So is it going to cause someone else to have a different understanding, different look, different to take on a misrepresentation of who Christ is? And if the thing that I create, whatever it is, does that and is a stumbling block for someone else, then it probably doesn't need to be out and about. I think of like, I get frustrated personally when I see pictures of Jesus and he's white, and I go, well, he definitely didn't live in America, definitely wasn't in Europe. So why, like, we can go back through all of history and recognize what people look like and where they came from. Yeah. In that area of the world. And so I don't get mad because.
Well, obviously I'm not meaning like in an emotional point of view, but I mean like, so this is what I'm talking about. There's a line from D13 Toys that are literal. It's called Biblical Adventures. Okay. It's literally a Jesus action figure. Yeah. Like by name. Like they're not saying divine guy. They're literally saying Jesus action figure. Is that beyond borderline? I mean, because like also look, they have Lucifer, red Jesus for some reason, Sacred Heart Jesus.
So there's
but hold on, this is the one they have crucifixion Jesus. You can actually put him on the cross with the action figure.
Yeah, that's a bit much for my taste.
Because it even comes with the hands and feet with holes in them, so that you can literally put him on the cross. And like, I asked a friend of mine about this who was raised Catholic, much like myself, and I'm like, I feel like this was made with good intentions, but like, why?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
There's things that definitely make me, scratch my head with it. I can see someone with, like you said, good intentions wanting to be able to maybe get kids involved in the story so they can understand a little bit better about what's happening. And
at least it actually has like a proper description too of what happened. Like
I was kind of quickly reading it through.
Yeah, I mean, it literally talks about Pontius Pilate, why he was arrested, how he was hung with the other two thieves. Other two thieves. Sorry, that's not what I meant. No, I got you. The spear of Longinus and everything else like that. I mean, like they don't. they don't represent it inaccurately or anything, but it was just the idea of like, okay, but why?
Yeah, and so some of it, and there's
And
some of those things
they got
I
Roman
probably
soldiers. They got John the Baptist down here.
yeah, and there's
different angels.
there's something to even we think about
Oh, Moses though.
during
They do got
Christmas
Moses.
time we do the
Yeah,
the manger scenes
Manger
and everything.
scenes.
Like so, do I get mad at that? No. It's just the likelihood that could be used in a I would say improper manner is a lot higher than your manger scene. But I don't think could it be used in a good way? Yeah.
I just find it's such a strange thing to think of, and I do think that like in a time where we were growing up, probably somewhere in the maybe late 70s, early 80s, I think there were other types of like little biblical action figures, maybe like no points of articulation types, like for that purpose. Like I feel like there was something along those lines.
Okay,
but I mean, like you get things like for like child's education in church where they have like coloring books that are representative of stuff like that. I feel like that doesn't push the line.
Yeah.
It kind of gets your child to engage with the story in a way that makes sense to them. Hey, color this in, and then we learn about the thing you just colored in, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
For educational purposes, totally makes sense. Little still on the weird outside of church is a weird thing to do, but like where in the world, in this case with collecting action figures, like obviously you see what I've got going on.
Yeah.
Here, let me figure out a spot to put my Jesus crucifixion set.
Yeah.
Like, and then also like, hey, you can nail Jesus to the cross yourself. I'm like, how do you sell this as a thing?
Yeah.
It's just like, I mean, I don't know. I'm not so sure about this one, buddy. It's just like,
Yeah,
it's a weird situation, but like, I rarely get to, I didn't even ask James about this, but I was reminded of it while we were talking.
Yeah, no, I think I could probably come up with more reasons to not have it than I would have
Reason to have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in light of, for me, that the easiest thing is this going to be a stumbling block for somebody else?
Yeah.
If it is,
It is for me, because
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm no joke, I'm tripping over like, why does this exist?
Exactly. And so for me, that's more than enough already to go, yeah, I don't need it.
Yeah.
And that's just, there's lots of things in life that are not quite like that, but
Yeah.
in that they fall into is it going to cause someone else that I know is looking to come to Jesus and work on that relationship with him, it's going to make him stumble. I don't need to mess with it.
I also feel like within the non-denominational space, there isn't a lot of imagery used in the same way like Catholicism does.
Yeah.
Where Catholicism has paintings, sculptures, everything else like that. We rarely have a statue of St. Peter and stuff like that in one of our non-denominational type churches. And I don't know, somewhere along the lines of the Protestant and Catholic split off, somewhere in there, I think, because if I recall correctly, through a certain particular movie about that split in the wars there in Britain, there was a whole thing about removing imagery from captured Catholic churches, if I recall correctly. Like they took down the golden stuff, they took down the certain images, replaced everything with wood instead, that kind of thing. So I think there somewhere along the lines we hit that weird split, probably a couple hundred years ago.
Yeah.
The good old days.
Yeah, I know generally, and growing up, my understanding and interaction with folks from the Catholic churches, there's just a bigger emphasis on the things that you can touch and feel and hold on to. Whereas, when you tend to be more non-denominational,
and a lot more ceremony.
Correct.
Including, obviously, I mean, I was an altar boy, so I'm all about the robes. I'm all about the proper presentation of stuff.
Yeah.
Hold the goblet right when people are drinking from it. That kind of, like, that was a weird part of training, was like, because when I got old enough to do that part.
And to be completely honest, ceremonial things aren't bad. They're not negative in nature, right?
But I'm saying it's like comparatively.
Yeah,
like,
but they don't take place of the relationship that I can have with Christ, right? It's a thing that maybe helps me remember him better or what he's done in a certain way. But when that becomes more important than the person that I'm trying to have a relationship with, and then it kind of,
as a broad statement, their relationship to Jesus is through the ceremonies. Whereas other non-denominational Christian style churches is about the relationship building the ceremony, not the ceremony being the relationship.
Yeah.
Because you don't, because I mean, like having praise and worship then listening to the message, and somewhere in there, depending on the church, whether you do weekly communion or every fifth Sunday.
Yeah.
Like my old church did every fifth Sunday.
Yeah.
So that was the only time we did.
You kind of, it's basically like once a quarter.
Yeah.
Usually.
Basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the difference. So when we started doing it like every week at our current church, it was a change of pace, even for the last change of pace I had going from Catholicism to Christianity. Not that I was ever big on it. I was just a part of it because my mom wanted to go to church.
Yeah.
My dad could care less. My dad was raised Lutheran. So it's like, let's just go completely different from everything else.
Yeah.
So he just went along to go along. He didn't get anything out of it. I went to CCE classes on like Wednesday nights or whatever.
Oh, yeah. I did the whole thing, huh?
Yeah. So I did the whole thing. Did the altar boy thing. Did all that kind of stuff. And then our church got big enough that they just kept getting enough people. And then they built like a whole school attached to it.
Yeah.
Just for that purpose. And, that's where I was like really, really involved in that. And then over time, other things just took precedent.
Yeah.
You know, we just never went except outside of holidays and stuff like that.
The quote unquote the big days of the year.
Exactly. You know, Palm Sunday, Christmas, Easter, that kind of stuff. And then the occasional random Sunday. Because at that point, I think I had well, it wasn't Boy Scouts, but, you know, some form of Scouts.
Yeah.
And then other stuff throughout the week. So it's just like, okay, we got too many things going on, and Sunday's like the only day we have for anything else, you know?
Yeah.
So we just stopped doing that. And then it was my high school girlfriend that got me into Christianity.
Okay.
Also, by the way, you have your headphones backwards.
Yeah, I realized that. I'm sitting there going like...
Yeah, so it's not that it's a big deal, but yeah, you do have it backwards left to right.
Thankfully, there's not like things happening on both sides of me. They're on the wrong side. It's all... Yeah, I was like... I looked at it. I was like, that's what I was like, these are on. I was looking at it. I saw I was like, this is...
Yeah, you're technically backwards, but it doesn't matter.
It's fine.
It only matters if you have the original mouthpiece attached. Yeah, but it's not there because we're doing this piece. Yes.
Fair enough.
So, see, I feel like with you and with James, there's this nice middle ground of Christianity and nerddom that has a nice bit of crossover, because I know James can turn anything nerdy into a sermon, which I really wish I was there for the Star Wars sermon he did at one of his other churches.
I'm sure it'll come back around. So it won't be the same, but another iteration of it will come.
Yeah, he told me about that. I was like, oh, I wish I knew you back then.
Yeah.
But there's another question that I've had for you for a while that I've just been sitting on until we can have a conversation away from the group, because once again, we don't want to have debates within men's group.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I think I came up with it a few months ago. I forgot exactly the conversation we had.
Okay.
But it's something that I've always thought about, and I finally put it to words.
Okay.
And this is a big question.
Okay.
In a way.
Gotcha.
And it was, has God ever been surprised?
Surprised? Surprised? No. Surprised?
Yeah.
No.
So the reason I ask is because obviously humanity is gifted with free will, because that's what he wanted people to have the choice.
Yeah.
But if we all have a predetermined destination,
based on what we choose,
yeah, then God, and if God knows the outcome, then he shouldn't be surprised, right?
So okay,
so let me solidify my point there. Correct. So there should not be a surprise in outcome. However, there would be the expectation of, in this case, I'll just go black or white.
Okay.
Choose to follow God, choose not to follow God.
Yep.
In which case, you just get one of two ultimate outcomes, right? So if you have two separate end zones, the only time I could see the best word I could put was surprise.
Okay.
Was which way you end up going. Because obviously he wants you to go one way. He wants you to love him and be with him forever and for eternity in heaven.
Yeah.
But the question is, for some people, would God be more surprised, quote unquote, depending on which way you end up? Because you could be a man of God forever, and then something horrible happens, you lose your faith, you give up on everything, you renounce God, and then you end up in theory, in the bad place. Say you do something bad that would, get ultimate bad sin situation, if you catch my drift.
Yeah.
Without being YouTube friendly here. So that's where I was wondering, like, say even go back to Adam and Eve times. I'm going way back.
Yeah.
Garden of Eden. Was God surprised that Adam and Eve listened to the serpent? Or did he go, I know this is going to happen, so I'm just going to sit back and watch, and then... So that's what I always wonder when it comes to...
Yeah. No, it's a good question.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm looking up, just getting a verse, make sure I
get
got
some
there.
verses, yeah.
Is it John 10?
Whoops. I keep doing that. I keep knocking my remote down. I never actually hit that unless I'm talking this way. Oh, crap, where did it go? Oh, okay. It didn't go all the way to the floor.
Well, it's kind of like we talked about the other week, right? So in John 10:25, my sheep listen to my voice. I know them and they know me. I give my sheep eternal life. They will never die, and no one can take them out of my hand. My Father is one who gave them to me. He is greater than all, and then no one can steal my sheep out of. No one can steal my sheep out of his hand. The Father and I are one.
Yeah.
And so this was historically. There's some other him saying I and the Father are one was a big deal, but the idea that even if someone if they made a true profession of faith, they trusted Christ, and things happen, they get mad at God, and they say, well, I don't want to do this anymore. Well, Scripture tells us that regardless of that choice, they are in his hand, and they're not leaving.
Okay.
So by the time they get to heaven, there's a separate conversation. God will rightly
You're going to be
judged
yeah.
with, but it's not like he's out of heaven. There's different... His conversation with God will be different than the next person's conversation.
Well, yeah,
right?
they're all going to be different.
Exactly.
So I'm talking to the classroom,
Yeah. So there's that piece. When you talk about being surprised, there's in God's omnipotence and his omnipresence, there's in his omnipotence, there's this idea that we, and when we put it down to the human mind, it's okay. You understand, how everything's going to play out. If he's given us free will, he understands the opportunities all the opportunities that we can take.
Yeah.
Right. But the reason he's given us work to do is so that we can have an influence on the opportunities other people take or do not take. So he will have an idea of, and I can't speak for him per se, but the way I understand his omnipotence is that he knows all the potential outcomes. He knows all the potential whatevers. And so, but in him giving us free will, we have an opportunity to step into some of those or not. Okay. So there's no surprise on these things are happening. You either choose yes or no. But they also have to recognize he's outside of time and space and time, yes. Right? So in his looking down at all the totality of what's happening and us walking through it, he's not going to be surprised the same way we would be surprised, right? And so I don't think there's a surprise in this is the choice you made.
Well, I oversimplified it, but because part of me was the reason I said that. Well, I can't think of the original reason I said it. There was something we discussed that night, and I don't recall the exact night it was. I know it was probably back in like March. I don't remember which area we were in March at that point.
It could have been Moses beating the rock. It could have been.
It might have been some of those days, and I think that one reason I had that thought pattern is like, okay, so especially Old Testament, it seemed like God didn't have a set plan when it came to the Old Testament. It was kind of like, okay, it's like, you guys are doing all of these things that I said you could do, but I told you not to do. So I gotta, save Sodom and Gomorrah.
Okay.
And to my mind, he's like, okay, go in there, save anybody you can. Find the one righteous person you can. I'm lumping in a few things there together, but the idea if you can find anyone in there, find 10 people in there, find one person in there, save them. I'll save the whole city. Couldn't. So the surprise is kind of more on our end, where it's like, okay, the one or two people managed to escape, right?
Yeah.
But the idea was, okay, well, these cities are lost, so I'm just going to nuke them and give you a chance to see what's going to happen. But before that, is like, would he have had the expectation of, well, they're lost, and I'm just going to sit here and wait until you come you see what happens. So the hard part is with the omnipotence and the omnipresence in being all places, time and space, not in a. It's like, see, the hard part with us is we can't think that way.
Yeah.
We can't think fourth and fifth dimensionally. Unfortunately, we don't have brains like that. But especially when it came to the garden, it made me believe that at least at that point in his quote unquote young age of Earth, God was surprised that not only Eve did the thing, but she convinced Adam to also do the thing. Like, and part of me wondered, like, just this the way my brain works, obviously, when I hear things like this, is like, okay, so if that was, he said, I'm going to create somebody who can hang out with me because my angels are boring. It's like, they just want to war against everything. There's nothing in existence. What am I supposed to war against? Yeah. It's like, no, you're going to protect stuff. Well, we don't have anything to protect. Bet. So it's like, I'm going to create two little hairless apes, and they're going to keep me company, and you're going to guard them. And they're like, do we have to? And anyways, I'm way oversimplifying that. But the idea was, okay, new experiment. Little things down there that can love me, that can choose to love me, or they will be there and love me through everything they experience, and they know I'm here because I can sit here and talk with them at any given point. And then they go, he says, hey, don't touch that. And I go, why? And I said, because it's bad. Don't
not for you.
It's not for you. That's only meant for me. I was like, okay, I'm going to go poke it. And he said, you better not. And it's okay, we won't. And then Eve goes, well, the cool snake said the fruit was awesome. So I'm going to go do that. So in that moment, just going way out here, curveball.
Okay.
That was God being surprised at the first instance of free will coming about to, quote unquote, bite his plan in the butt. And then from there, he said, no, I'm going to just go ahead and set all this out ahead of time because this little plan of mine didn't work. So now I need a bigger plan because this one simple plan didn't work the way I thought it would. I know that's a super oversimplified and dumb way to put it, but...
And then also, like, the other aspect of it is, I don't know if we can necessarily...
Because
in that sense, speak for God that,
I know we can't speak for God.
But with that, even using this example, right, there's, again, going to they have free will.
Yeah.
Within giving them free will, he gives, because otherwise they can't love.
Yeah.
Right? So
True.
you have to have the free will in order to choose love. Love's the choice, right? And so now we come to this place now where it's, okay, there's a choice to make. Do I either listen to what God says, or is there someone else that makes a very strange, compelling, convincing argument?
Yeah, it's cool guy.
And instead
of the cool snake with the cigarette and sunglasses.
Yeah, him.
That's a funny representation. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I've seen a couple like that. Yeah, but instead of, we can poke at it a million different ways, but instead of going, hey God, this is what someone's telling me, is it true? Like, instead of taking it and looking at it and going, does that match up with what God's told me or not? They say, okay, shoot, let's go for it. Yeah. And do I think that's a surprise? No, because God, I think, very clearly understood when he made them, this is an opportunity. This is something they can do. Yeah. The surprise? No.
Well, the other reason I say surprise, because we see surprise as one particular type of thing, I think, but also disappointment can come from surprise. Was God disappointed in Adam and Eve?
I mean, I think you hear it when he tells them, hey, you're not, like, when he,
because he's definitely sad that they separated themselves from him.
Correct.
In the very literal sense.
So when he comes back down and he's coming and walking through the garden, and they hide from him, he's like, why are you guys? Why are you
hiding from me?
Why are you not where you usually are? Because you usually have this time together, and it's that.
And at that point, they had discovered shame as well, right? And
right. And so it wasn't that he didn't know where they were.
Yeah.
It was, I'm letting you know. I already know.
Yeah, I already know what you did.
I already know what's happened. Right. Don't hide from me even now. Like now we have to talk about it. Right. Yeah. And so even then, I surprise, I think you can use disappointment. I think that word is fine. I wouldn't use surprise. I don't think anything I do ever surprises him. Yeah. I don't think there's a decision I've made or not made or whatever that made God go, oh, I didn't know that was in you. Oh no, he knows he's the one who formed me together, right? Yeah. So he knows that's in me. It's in my free will. Am I going to be obedient, disobedient? How am I going to react or prepare myself for a different situation? Yeah. And in doing so,
well, the other reason I think about it is because I mean, I've seen multiple different versions of God in media, and I think at least the one that I buy the most is the one they did from Supernatural.
Okay.
Because
I have no idea. I haven't watched Supernatural. So
spoilers.
Yeah, go ahead.
Spoilers that they bring in God eventually. Now, mind you, the road they took him in at the end, no, I don't agree with that. Where he goes back to being a vengeful God, because he's annoyed that something didn't go his way. They do make him more human and petty, but that was also after he spent several thousand years living on Earth amongst humans. So he chose to he got bored, quote unquote bored. There's a lot of stuff that goes down in that universe.
Okay.
That make God who he eventually becomes. But prior to that, it seemed like the way they set it up is that, okay, I'm going to create the universe. I'm going to create man.
Yeah.
I'm going to start this story. And I'm going to let the story write itself. Like, I have the end goal, like the apocalypse, all that stuff, Armageddon, all of that with my angels fighting, Earth coming to an end, all of this stuff, heaven and hell battle, all of that is the end. This point is done. Here's the beginning part, here's the end part. You guys write everything that happens along the path, and I'm going to stay out of the story and see what happens.
Yeah.
And I feel like Old Testament God wasn't that God. Old Testament God was very involved. And then he eventually said, I'm going to step out away from this because otherwise I'm going to have to keep nuking the earth when you guys get so sinful again. It's like, I'm going to have to flood the earth again if you guys don't stop doing this. And then at some point, around the time of the flood, basically, after that, he's like, look, the earth is cleansed. You guys go and repopulate. Most of the sinners are gone at this point, hopefully, in theory.
Yeah.
Except for the Nephilim, which are elsewhere on a mountain somewhere. And we'll see those guys later.
So, a couple things.
Sure.
Like just real quick thoughts. So, you see in the Old Testament in Malachi 3:6, it says 3:6, for I the Lord do not change, therefore, O children of Jacob, you are not consumed. And so we see in the Old Testament, he's like, hey, I don't change. I'm the same all the time.
God stays the same,
Right? And then we hit in Hebrews, 13? You're going to get me on verses. I'm pretty sure it's Hebrews 13.
I mean, I'm not going to fact check you.
No, that's fine.
I doubt my listeners will fact check you either.
It's fine. I know where
To be fair.
Pulling it up over here, just making sure.
Yeah.
But
yeah, be accurate if you can be anything.
Absolutely. Hebrews 3. Hebrews 13, sorry. And then starting in verse 7, Hebrews 13. Remember your leaders, those who spoke to you the word of God. Consider the outcome of their way of life and imitate their faith. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever.
Okay.
And so when you look at the Old Testament, you see there's a lot of rules and things. And because in a lot of those times, God was just answering what the people are asking.
Yeah.
They said, we want rules.
It was a lot more direct connection.
We want to know all this X, Y, and Z. And he's going, his desire is to be in relationship with us.
Yeah.
Right? The entire time has always been to be in relationship with us. And with the rules that were in place, it was because it was showing the people that they alone themselves were not good enough, right, to save themselves. They needed
something.
They needed him. They needed that relationship with Christ, right? And in order to do so, because God is so holy, he couldn't just be with them the way they wanted to, right? So when you think about all the times they had to splatter the blood was a representation of all the things, the sin, all that they had that needed to be cleansed, wiped away. And so
sacrificial animals, whatever.
Right. And so in order for me here, it's just a reminder how often they had to do those sacrifices. I mean, it
was weekly on Sunday.
It was, literally, if you think about it. I make a joke,
but I think that's about right.
But if you think about it, it's like a constant line of folks. Because the number of people that lived around and had to get there to make the sacrifices, like, it's just literally, the priests were like animal slaughterers. Like, that's what they
basically
90% of their job was slaughtering animals, right? Like, because that and there's a whole process with that.
And blessing things and
but that was
stuff.
a reminder of the constant sin. Like, there's so much that we do day in, day out that is off the mark. Like, we miss the mark. So in order for a holy God to spend time with us, that was necessary. But then Jesus comes, right? So then, we had all these quote unquote rules, but they were showing the people you needed the relationship with God. You couldn't do it by yourself. And then he comes and walks with them for those years, for those 30.
So But let me just interrupt that thought right quick.
Mm-hmm.
Just because the previous scripture said God is eternal, unchanging,
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff, until Jesus, because then God became man briefly.
So okay,
As a part of
if you
man.
think of it as in like he stepped down from heaven
Because there
to
wasn't
be-
much of it. There wasn't an active Trinity before that.
Oh, there was. Oh yeah, they were all there together.
Yeah,
And
they were in one place.
Yeah, but they still active
Yeah.
as a Trinity, right? So
but
God,
not on Earth.
Yeah. Well, yes.
Yes.
In that.
I mean, the
essence
Holy
of-
Spirit was doing things around.
Right. The Holy Spirit was still drawing people to Himself. I mean, how else are they going to know about God? If,
Yeah.
Right. So, but with Jesus coming, it's not that His nature changed. Who He is didn't change. Right. He took on form of man, but He's still God. There's still His character doesn't that of Him does not change. So the way He was going to enact, react, to do anything doesn't change.
Yeah.
He took on the form of man. So in that case, there is a
There's only one tiny argument that I have for that, and
Okay.
it's not against. It's an argument for that point.
okay.
And it was something that Jeremy Boring brought up on a podcast, and I'd never heard it put this way. Because, people always say, well, if God is so great, can He create a boulder so big He can't lift? And he said, and the answer is yes. God could not show Himself love.
Mm-hmm.
He had to create things to love Him.
Mm-hmm.
But God Himself, the love of Himself is something He could not do until Jesus. Because Jesus was man on earth and could show love to God in His own direct sense.
Well, I would disagree with that.
While the same entity, technically speaking,
Mm-hmm.
He does love the Father. Outside of that, God could not love Himself directly.
What? So
He can only create things to love Him.
I would disagree with that. Was
Okay.
it 1 John?
But the idea that the boulder, He did technically create a boulder He couldn't lift, and that was Jesus loving Him. Self. It's weird. The Trinity is an odd concept when you really think about it.
And like there's things in. The
I mean,
word that
like I
we're
said,
just-
it's not a negative thing. It's just that God had no way to love Himself in the same way, because love had to be a choice. God doesn't have a choice in that manner. God is just God, so He had to give something the choice to love Him. Right?
Say that again.
So, like we said before, love is a choice. So to love God is a choice. So you get that free will. So He had to create something that had free will that could love Him in return, because He was by Himself, couldn't love Himself
it
internally.
is a choice for us as human beings.
Yes.
God being God,
Yeah.
He is the embodiment of love.
And
So
yeah,
there is
so He
the-
can't love Himself. He can love us, but He can't love.
So here's the thing:
Yeah,
is it already in the beginning? So in the beginning was the Word was God. The Word in the beginning, and this is the easy to read version. But in the
Yeah.
beginning, before the earth was made, the Word was there. Jesus was with God, and the Word was God. Right. So Jesus and God and the Holy Spirit are already there together.
Uh-huh.
Communion, relationship, loving one another, loving Himself, even if you want to say it that way.
Yeah.
So that was already happening before the earth was formed. So there was already relationship that was there to show us that, one, we need that relationship, and how important it is that we have that direct relationship with our Heavenly Father. So all that,
But I feel
and the fact that God is love.
Mm-hmm.
He
well,
doesn't have to have this outpouring of love for Himself, but He got that through His relationship with the Holy Spirit
Yes.
and Jesus.
that's what I'm
Right?
getting at. So the other parts of Himself are the only way that He can show love towards Himself or bring love to Himself.
And then, but you have to think, those are everlasting and already
True,
there. Alpha
but what I'm
Omega.
saying
So-
is, without that, if it was just God by Himself, nothing else, then there is nothing to give love. There's nothing to love and nothing to give love. Like,
I mean, yeah, that if that were the case,
yeah.
but it's
So
not.
if you treat God like the brain doesn't have nerve endings. It doesn't feel pain, but pain comes to it. So if God is love core, love goes outward from God. So the only way to get love back is to have something to return that love, right? So if God is love personified, so to speak, like real love, not infatuation, blah, 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 then something would have to exist to return that. So if God can't love himself by himself, that would be the boulder that's too big. So therefore, something has to do it. So you've got the Holy Spirit and you've got Jesus, both to, within themselves, return that love, but also bring it via humanity, being the conduit from which humanity can be reconnected to God.
I think I understand it to a point. At the same point I go, but
Yeah.
the fact is,
I think it's a point of view
they're
thing,
all
but yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Right? So regardless of, you can say if, well, the fact is they were all there together. They're all, even in triune God was all there himself. And so that embodiment of love was there from the beginning. And
So here's the other question, going back to the earlier thing. Was Jesus ever surprised?
was Jesus ever surprised? I think
By events or by his people?
so. And this probably has some guys who have way more years in theological debate, but
just thoughts.
But so we recognize that when Jesus stepped down from heaven, he took on the form of man.
Yeah.
And with that, he did not have full access to the power that he had while he was in heaven.
Yeah.
Right. So in that aspect, were there some things that
I don't think he had. He didn't have perfect omnipotence, but he had. I think he had the roadmap. I think he had the roadmap.
He and the Father communicated.
Yeah.
Right. Was what he knew that he was well within his capability to do while he was here on Earth.
Yeah.
And so there's an aspect of was there a potential for him to be surprised by things? Sure,
because I think
in his direct, he did it perfectly. So
he was
a
perfect being surrounded by imperfect beings would have to have some room for adjustment to imperfections. Like, he's not going to change. I agree with that. But you see it a lot, especially in some of the earlier days with Simon Peter, where he's like super doubting like all the time, or questioning Jesus' choices and stuff like that.
They're trying to understand.
Even beyond that, but the situation of God, Lord, you're doing all these other wonderful miracles for people over here, but you're not doing anything for me to save anything in my life this way. And then he starts leading down this path of like, well, if you're not going to do these things for me, then I'm not going to follow you the way you want. It's like, so, and then of course they reconnect later during the storm and whatnot. But just in that line of thing, it was like I said, Jesus didn't have full access to all of the godly powers, for lack of a better term, but the way I always saw it is that like he's got this roadmap. We're gonna get to here, and we need to do this, and I need you to do this. That's why basically the instructions come from on high. They come down to him. He translates it to the men. We make this happen because he can't just do it on his own. He's got to have these disciples, or else it's pointless.
He could do it on his own, but it wouldn't be the same.
It wouldn't. Yeah, if it was just Jesus doing the things, then people are just like, cool, yay. But no, we need like this discipleship thing that we're doing wouldn't have happened if Jesus just said, nah, I'm good, guys. I got this.
Yeah.
It's like I'm just going to take everyone on by myself. I don't need acolytes. I don't need anybody going out there spreading my word. I'm going to take care of this, whatever. But I think it was it was almost like a reverse to the garden. You had to bring them back to the garden from the farthest point.
Yeah, the whole plan was built on reconciliation.
Yeah,
right. And so, So I'll say this, and as much as Jesus and his Father had a relationship that he was perfectly in tune with, there's definite moments where, like we see Jesus get fatigued, and so like you think about, okay, well, could God get fatigued? Well, again, he was performing in the fullest capability of the human body, what it could do, and he came and showed us what was possible in having a faith in God and what that looks like. And so, do I think there's some things that I don't know if caught off guard? I wouldn't say caught off guard. Were there things that?
Because I think, like in the case of like some of the accidental miracles. Like the woman who touched his robes and was healed. He didn't see that coming. like in my opinion, like because he was on his way to go do specific miracle.
Yeah.
And then she came up in amongst the crowd, and then because she felt whatever, I can't possibly talk to him, I'm unclean, all these other things, and then she touches his robe, quote unquote, drains his power, and she gets healed by him.
She says, "Power's gone out of me." Right?
Power has gone out of me. What happened?
Who touched me?
Who touched me? So that is legitimately in scripture written down as a surprise.
Well, so to
him,
he knew who touched him. This was an opportunity for them to show their faith, right? So yeah, you can go do a bunch of different breakdowns, but he knew who touched him, right? Yeah. And so in knowing that, it was more of the
if he didn't look down, he probably wouldn't have been very confused.
Well, think about it. They're packed in like a can of sardines walking down this road. Yeah. These people want to see miracles. They're trying to do all these things. There's a bunch of people touching him already.
Well, I would have thought that he had the disciples kind of parting ways for him, but
this is sardines walking down a road, right? And he's on the way. And on his way to go take care of the soldier's child.
Yes, that was the one who died.
Yeah. And on the way to that, this is happening. Yeah. And so people are touching. His disciples are touching. Like people just
but nothing else is happening.
Right. And this lady had such faith in Christ that all I need to do is touch his. I don't need to touch him, robe. Just the robe. Yeah. Right. And so in that there's this. And she had an issue with blood, and that took care. Yeah. He healed that. He knew who touched her. This was to show. This was an example.
He did not intend to do that, but it happened.
And the truth is, the truth is whether he intended for that to happen because he knew she was going to come touch him.
Yeah.
Or this was something that was happening on the way.
Yeah.
He's still God. Like, and that's the cool thing, right? Yeah. So like, and so for me, it's like some of those, and this goes back to the other things we talked about before. Like sometimes I just go like, I don't, because that sounds rude. I do care, because this is a fun conversation. I'm really enjoying this. But there's some things like that where I just go like, whether that is or isn't, the fact that he's still who he says he is, and he's faithful, and he's continuing to fulfill all the promises he said he would fill, and continue to be exactly who he says he is. Yeah, it's good enough for me.
Yeah. No, I get that. No, I get what you mean by the I don't care if it was this because this.
Yeah.
I get what you meant. Yeah.
Because I've said it to someone else before, and they're like, I was like, no.
It came off wrong.
Yeah, it came off wrong. And I'm trying to be better about how I say that. Yeah. But the
end result was the same. It was the in between was the thing that did not matter.
Right. And the cool thing was it was a lesson to all those that were there
to have faith beyond
about what faith in Christ really looks like for a lot of people who were just there because they wanted to see a miracle. Yeah. They just wanted to see, this is a sideshow. This is really cool. Yeah. Like, maybe he'll do something cool for me, or like all these other. Or
they were there for proof. They were the doubters. They wanted proof. Well, if he can really do these things, let's see what happens.
They want evidence. They want proof. They're here for a show. They just along for the ride. And many of those folks didn't understand truly what it meant to follow and trust in God.
That there was just a lot of hype.
Yeah,
right. It was just literally a giant hype circle at this point.
I mean, it's
duh. I mean, it's like, let's be honest here. If all that was really happening day to day, and you're just like, Jesus is coming to town, we're gonna go see Jesus.
We're gonna go see who. Yeah, see if this guy is who he says he is. I mean, I think of Zacchaeus when he heard he was on the way down. He stopped all his everything he was doing to get up in the tree and see if who is this man that has more power and more he's
more
supposed to be
authority over
than I do, and
Pharisees,
he's the premier tax collector in the land, so all those things, like Jesus was, not only was he a big deal because of what they understood history to be, but they also were waiting for him to rise and take the throne and have this earthly kingdom, right? And that's
but his kingdom is not on earth; his kingdom is in heaven. Yeah.
Exactly. But it is there with him as well. It's kingdom's at hand. He's coming to seek and save the lost. But it was really. Like that story with the woman with the issue of blood was just, I've always found that really interesting because of just the nature of her. If you go like her story specifically, years of her life, and she's been considered unclean, and so all the ramifications of her touching Jesus is a big thing for your Pharisees, Sadducees, all the people who know more than Jesus did, right, quote unquote. And so this was a lesson on so many different levels to not only who she was, but who God is and why he came. Yeah. And so they just had this issue of him saying, claiming to be who he says he was. And there was this, for them, it's blasphemy because they were the ones who knew who God was supposed to look like. But
Well, also they also at that point there were other quote unquote miracle workers.
yeah,
That so they're just like, okay, it's just like any other prophet. He's just like whatever. Oh, this other dude over here said he totally fixed this guy's leg before, and it's just mangled.
and there's
whatever.
and right.
I mean, I'm sure there were other smaller miracles somewhere along the line from other definitely godly people at some point. You know, because God had been doing miracles in the world for however long prior to this. So it's like we have record of actual miracles. We know these things are doable, and we know that because we are the ordained ones.
Yeah.
We've gone through all the things. I have however many beads on my wraps, whatever whatever makes me the head poobah today.
Yeah.
Not to be all sacrilegious about it, but that is kind of how
I
they
get
were.
what you mean.
There was a lot of holier than thou
Yeah.
aspects there.
Yeah.
That's why they didn't. That's why they hated. "Quote unquote" hated Jesus because he was literally like, "No, you're not."
Yeah. Like,
He's
nope.
Nope. Technically, I'm over you guys, and they're like, "What now?"
Yeah.
It's like, no,
And
I'm.
How are you speaking with such authority? All these things, and it's like,
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's
It reminds me of in Dune when what's his face actually finds his voice at some point, and he like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
fine.
when he
How to
actually
use
uses the voice proper
Uh-huh.
and shows his true authority over everyone.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh, okay, now we
so-
understand.
so
We've
he
heard
is
all
the
these things
guy.
before, and now it's just, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, yep,
Yep, that's him.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's
but-
him. Yep.
But the crazy thing is, in that time, Jesus was doing these things and fulfilling all these prophecies, and they would keep finding reasons to explain or try and explain away. Oh, that's just some.
Well, yeah, he's just a magician. He's
Yeah.
doing sorcery. That was one of their big excuses was it's black sorcery or whatever.
It's
it's
just whatever else it could be that it can't.
Wasn't
be.
it? Didn't they say at one point he was like demon possessed, and that's how he had these powers?
Yeah, they
all the bad things.
attribute a lot of different things to him.
I mean, at that time, that was the thing, though. That was like
Yeah.
legitimately that was the thing. I was like, oh no, this person has like 700 demons in them.
Well, and I think even to that point, when kind of circling this all the way back to some earlier conversation, as Christians, we're told that the war that we're in is not against flesh and blood,
Yeah,
right? And so when you think about
it's a spiritual war.
exactly, and so I the more I kind of dive into just what God's been showing me in my life and doing, I have this phrase I used to borrow from my dad, like I don't really get too spooky about some things, and that just means like okay, like ghosts, whatever.
Yeah.
But as I recognize that this is a battle against, this is a heavenly battle. There's going to be things, a spiritual battle, a better way to say it right now. So sometimes when I walk into a room and things are heavy and you just kind of walk in and you go, oh, that's not good.
Yeah,
Right. I go, well, maybe I ought to start praying. You know, maybe there's something you're talking about something that's happened here, and you just kind of have that. Well, yeah,
well,
maybe
it's kind of a feeling I get walking into hospitals.
yeah,
Like
I think
because I've always even back in the day when my dad worked at a hospital, like he was down in the computers and stuff, but walking through a hospital to go visit him, I always felt something like
hospitals feel different. Like the
yeah,
truth, like
I mean, it's more people die there than live there, probably.
Yeah.
Well, not what I mean.
Well, and
nobody lives at the hospital, but you catch my drift. But
Yeah.
it's the literal focus point of birth and death, like in one spot.
Yeah.
It's like that's got to be some kind of energy field there
There-
because of the situation.
Absolutely, that there's a spiritual battle happening and all those in that front,
Even on top of that, yeah.
right? I mean, you think about it, like you just said, there's a literal death and life and death happening at the same location, right? And we know that Satan would love nothing more than to start issues right at those moments.
Yeah.
Life and death, when families come in, like
That's the nexus point of emotions.
yeah, like and if he can use those moments to take anyone further away from Christ, he will, right? And so that's
So
and,
if birth and death are the biggest emotional points in someone's life, like the birth of your child, you're probably not going to feel emotions that big again until someone that you love equally dies, or vice versa. You die, and the emotional swell around that. So if you put all of that positive and or negative energy into one, square mile, thousands a day.
yeah.
It's like there's going to be an energy field around that, and most people won't pick up on. But I've always been kind of empathic in that way.
Yeah,
In a weird
there's
way.
a
They
lot.
always like I don't like hospitals, and I've had to spend way too much time in them in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And like some people will be like, well, why don't you go visit your mom in the hospital? It's like, because it messes me up to go there. It's like, yes, I want to go be supportive of my mom, but like, I don't like the feeling when I walk in the building.
Yeah,
it's like, it's an overall body feeling.
Yeah. And I mean, that's
that and illness and all that too.
And that's, I mean, Scripture
This
tells
glass
us
is empty.
Yeah. Scripture tells us to train ourselves up for godliness, because bodily training is of some value. Training for spiritual things is of value in so many more ways. And so, like when you think about you saying that, and I think about getting into like going into those places. I remember when my mom had a stroke and we had to go see her. It was really hard for me to go. Yeah. And so I would pray. We would pray before we went, because if I didn't pray, I wasn't going. Yeah. And so there's a lot there. I think, you talk about it being just a bed of spiritual warfare. I think it is one of those places that clearly is one of those.
Well, it's a different feeling to going to the mall.
Oh, yeah.
That's it is. That's a different type of warfare.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of other things going on. Yeah. But you're right.
That's just not to go there. It's just a massive den of sin at that point at the mall. Yeah, it's like the personification of greed and lust, and
there's a whole lot.
Building.
There's a whole lot of things happening there.
Not that the mall's not fun. Don't get me wrong. I don't go there very often because I don't like people that much. Yeah, there's too many people, especially in the malls here.
I'd stay away from the malls. I can't.
Jessica keeps making me go during Christmas, and I'm like, no, I don't want to.
Well, I get during Christmas because like you can hit kind of all the stores at one time.
We're not shopping. She just wants to go to the mall.
Oh well. I'm just like, why?
I mean, I want to go to the restaurants near the mall.
Yeah, the restaurants near the mall aren't bad. Are you talking about Willowbrook, or are you talking about
Woodlands? The Woodlands.
Woodlands, yeah.
Willowbrook's okay too.
Willowbrook's not so bad.
The mall sucks, but the places around the mall are
cool. Food around there is not.
Food around there is good. Yeah,
food around there is pretty good.
I dated someone that worked right over there, so we went to eat around there.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a different lifetime.
Hey, it was another time, another space.
I was being a sinner.
It's all good.
Yeah, happens. Her husband wasn't very appreciative of the situation.
Well, yeah.
But that's also how he got in that situation in the first place. Well, unfortunately. Be a crappy husband, your wife steps out on you.
She says, "Are we Virgie?"
Unfortunately, she never did.
Oh, well. Yeah, so, unfortunately.
For her, not necessarily for me. I'm glad I got out of that situation. But, different. But like I said, different lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah. Younger, dumber.
Yeah, I've got some young, dumb stories that
do tell.
Can't today, but...
I was going to say, this is the place for it, for sure.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, how much time you got?
I do have to go.
Okay, that's what I was going to say, is that we're getting close. Yeah. I didn't want to start another conversation otherwise.
No, this is fun.
Yeah, but I had another thought, and then we sidetracked slightly. That's what I forgot. Because we normally talk pop culture stuff and things currently going on as well.
Yeah.
We don't always just talk about big spiritual objects. In fact, we rarely do. But when I have a man of God here to do so, it's more fun to bring up things that I've don't get to on a normal basis.
That was cool.
Plus, when I had the conversation with my buddy Will about why he fell away from the church, that was kind of a thing to.
It kind of helped spur it. Yeah.
But careful.
I was cracking my back. Forgot I couldn't lean back.
Yeah, you can lean back. Just take off the headphones.
Yeah.
Just there you go. Relieve your pressure.
There it is.
I did not get a chance to get to it this morning because I had only so little time. But Demon Slayer is currently back, and we're in freaking training arc.
Yep.
And it's like, unlike the other training arcs, which every episode felt like a big important thing.
This one doesn't.
They blasted through 3 Hashira trainings in one episode. Because I guess they weren't that important at the time.
Yeah.
It was comedic run through. But I still love the show. Obviously, they're building to much bigger stuff because you got to get through the Hashira training arc to get to the Infinity Castle arc.
Yeah. The Infinity Castle is going to be...
I don't even know how many seasons that's going to have to be.
I can't wait. I think I'll pick... So I haven't been watching it. I kind of just waited. And when the Infinity Castle arc comes, I'm going to rewatch from the beginning.
Yeah, go back and rewatch. Okay.
My wife is watching it right now, so I get a little
definitely got to sit down and talk. I have yet to sit down and talk anime with her, and I need to.
Oh yeah, you should.
Need to pull her aside after church one day and just talk anime.
Yeah.
Or if we just have a fellowship gathering thing.
Yeah. Which we will have one of those soon, but definitely, just pull her aside to church. She'll. You know who also watches anime a good bit? Mariah and Victor.
Okay, so I haven't got I have not got to talk to them about that yet.
Okay,
but we do just talk stuff because the last big get together we had at at the baptisms,
yeah,
the last
yeah.
baptism things. We were stuck cooking, so we were just BSing our way.
Oh,
through
okay,
that at the time.
yeah.
So once again, walk into a situation, end up taking charge.
Yeah, I was like,
they're sitting there
walked in.
trying to figure out how to make beignets. I'm like, okay, hold on, wait. It's like, hold
Yeah,
on,
I saw that
this
happen.
Is
I was
wrong.
like,
I gotta fix this.
It was funny. It was
I'm
so
getting
funny.
in the middle of this because it's going so wrong.
I want my beignets to be good.
Yeah, I mean, I could care. It's like I just wanted. It's like, nope, this ain't working this way.
Yep.
It's like they're supposed to fluff up. They're not fluffing up. Something went wrong
Yeah,
there.
but hey, I admire. They were they were trying. It
Yes,
was good.
but that is good advice. I do need to. Actually, Victor keeps asking me about the podcast too. Like whenever I see him, he's interested in stuff. So
yeah. I think he'd be
he'd be a
good
fun
at it.
guest. I mean, he'd be a good hang regardless.
Yeah,
but-
he's pretty fun.
And Mariah's
hung out with
nice.
him. Yeah, Mariah's nice too. He streams.
Does he?
I don't know what him and.
Oh, that's right. He's a gaming guy.
Yeah, he's a gaming guy. Yeah, so they
because
stream
he
something.
disappeared one night over there, and I'm like, where did Victor go? And then I realized he's on the huge gaming PC in the library. I'm like, okay, that's where he's been all this time. He's gaming
He's
on the
doing his thing.
gigantic wraparound screen. I'm like, I mean, that costs more than my entire setup, but you know.
Yeah, they've got a big old that thing.
And that was just the downstairs one.
Yeah.
I think that
Is
one
it
of the
an
kids
upstairs?
has another one. That's also ridiculous.
Oh, Dean? Yeah. I
Yeah,
think he's got
Dean.
one.
Yeah, he's got one too. But on top of that, I just started watching episode 1 of season 2 of House of the Dragon when you came on.
Oh, okay.
I just started.
Oh, that was
It's
on?
only
Okay.
2 minutes into the episode.
So
when
you've
you
got
walked in.
something good to
So
look
that's
forward
what
to.
I got to deal with at some point today because now I got to go help my mom go grocery shopping. So I guess
Okay.
it's ended up being a good thing that we started early because normally Jeff would just now be showing up to do
get started.
things.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
We'd be getting started around about 40 minutes from now, so it's
Okay.
actually pretty good.
Yeah, well, I'll leave you with one show to watch.
Okay, well, you still got to watch shows.
I'm getting there, but Shangri-La Frontier.
I know of it.
Yeah, just go ahead. That's
We'll
it.
see. I
That's
mean,
it.
like I've got so many old shows that I keep going back to right now. Like
Yeah.
I'm cutting through Sherlock again.
Okay.
Which is since they put it on Hulu, I was like, yes.
Yeah, Sherlock was fun.
so good.
Me and the wife have watched that a couple times.
It's so good.
It's good.
I mean, every episode's a movie.
So we watched Sherlock. I watched Sherlock. She didn't watch Sherlock, but we watched Elementary. Didn't like Elementary?
Don't even want anything to do with it.
Oh, it's good. It's good.
No,
like
it's
it
not.
took trust me.
It's
Oh, don't do this. Oh,
I can't.
but it's
I gave it like half an episode and I just couldn't stand it.
oh no. See, I was the same way. I gave it half. And I
That
said,
dude's fake British accent is so bad.
Oh, it
That
was
Sherlock
one of
is
those
so
things.
not good.
It took a second, and once I bought into just the world that they
Yeah.
were in,
It
great.
it just felt, from my experience, maybe I'm wrong. It just felt like a procedural crime drama that had Sherlock Holmes in it.
Oh no,
Not a show about Sherlock Holmes.
It grows. They just try to get you in with the general
I think-
Sherlock theme.
I think Lucy Liu as Watson also threw me for a loop.
It threw me for a loop, and I just said,
just
you know what?
can't.
I'm gonna watch the first 5.
That
And
thing is
once by the time I
CBS.
think it was like episode 3, I was like, okay, I can do this.
I just at that point I was already so deep into Sherlock. I'm just like
Yeah.
not. I don't even watch the Sherlock Holmes movies, like the Robert
Yeah.
Downey Jr. movies.
Oh, those are
Never
good
even
too.
seen them.
Oh, those
I
are
heard they're good. I've just never seen them.
Okay, but in order for my wife to not be late,
That's good. We
Okay.
can go. We're going.
Okay.
It's fine, it's
Sorry,
fine. We're good. We can do this.
yeah, because
It's all
I
good.
can talk this all day. But I'll see you later. So maybe.
Maybe. I'm trying
Okay,
to figure
let
out
me
if
know.
this is the week I go on Wednesdays or not.
Well, let me know because either if not,
Well, yeah, because the problem is if anybody else comes or not.
well,
So-
I know Kevin's other Kevin's coming today,
okay,
so all good.
I'll bleep that. It's fine.
Okay.
It's fine. So that's good. Okay, so maybe I will come tonight. We'll see. We'll see what happens because
Okay.
this is my free Wednesday, so that's the thing. Either way, also guys, I did forget to promote the Patreon, so we do have the uncut video version on the Patreon where you'll be able to see Andre's smiling face this whole time. It's all good. And then I'll get you back on because I want to talk more about your previous acting life.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I do want to talk about that more.
That'd be cool.
Not to mention we can get into more anime, a little bit less
Yeah.
God. So either way, so thanks for coming and joining me.
Absolutely.
This was awesome because
Good time.
I needed some fill in for Jeff.
Hey, glad to do it.
Yeah, and if nothing else, whenever you want to come back, just let me know. I'm sure he would also love to sit down and we'll just cram all 3 of us in here.
Works for me.
Yeah, I have multiple microphones. And then also episode 100 is coming up on July 6th. So if for some reason you're free that evening and you want to come play along, there will be open mics.
Okay.
So that'll be a really weird questionnaire.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I already told you,
July
there's some weird
6th.
ones in there.
Okay.
Yeah, July 6th, we'll be doing it sometime in the evening.
Sounds good.
So if you just convince the wifey to let you escape for a couple hours.
You can try.
Yeah, either way.
Give it a shot.
open invite.
Yeah.
So
Sweet.
I mean,
Thank
even if it's for a little bit.
Yeah.
So either way, guys, do like and subscribe thing, and come check us out per week. And of course, if you want to watch the video version on YouTube or Rumble, you can do that. Of course, if you're just listening to the audio one, we do appreciate you. And if you want to leave any questions or comments, I will do those. If there are any on the YouTubes. And then, of course, you can send it to the email, NowYouMadeItAwkwardMail@gmail.com, if you have any long-form questions. And, of course, you can message the Facebook directly with voicemails that we will play on the show and answer you, just like we did with Shaun earlier. So, and also, leave a comment based on the question. Like, what are some proud moments for your dad, since we just had Father's Day? So, either way. And we always end this with a unanimous K-bye. So, 1, 2, 3.
Okay,
K-bye.
bye.